The world has changed. America has changed. If something were to happen tomorrow, how self-sufficient would you be? Could you grow your own food? Could you sustain your own livestock? Could you survive? This is the WeGrowOurs show with Nick and Don. Nick and Don talk about everything from politics to planting. They cover techniques, methods, and tips on how to not only survive, but thrive. Visit the website at WeGrowOurs.com. Lock and load. This is the WeGrowOurs show. Get your grow on.
Welcome back to the WeGrowOurs show. Don wasn't ready for the shouting.
No, these headsets. I don't have my typical headset on, and I don't like this one.
Oh,
this is one I wear, make Nick wear.
I was going to say, I wore that one for like a year.
I know, my ears hurt.
Why is that?
Because they don't fit right. I don't like them.
Oh.
Anyway,
we are back. We've had 4 or 5 weeks off now?
Yeah, well, we've got a couple of podcasts that need to go out.
Oh, that's
but
true.
I haven't had any written stuff from Nick to be able to put them out. So they'll be out by the time you hear this. We'll have already released a few more. So I'm sorry about that. We've been a little busy with other things, and, it just happens.
Yeah, and, we've got day jobs and side projects and everything else. I have a shippable cage now.
Yay!
I still don't know how to ship it.
That's hostilehair.com.
Hostilehair.com.
And you can find it on Facebook, too.
That's right. /hostile.hair.
Hostile.hair. So
Yep.
go to WeGrowOurs.com and I'll put all the links on.
Hey, perfect. There you go. Look at you.
So, format change.
Yep.
We ditched the radio.
Yeah, it was.
Well, we ditched KFNX.
Yeah.
Not to badmouth them.
No, they
like
were.
The
they
homeless lady. We would not want to upset her.
All right. KFNX was good to us. We didn't see any increase from the locals, and might not have been the right fit. I mean, there's a lot of folks on there that wanted to. I don't know. They were into the independent scene, I guess. A lot of right wing, but at the same time, there wasn't a whole lot of increase in traffic or anything that said, "Yeah, I heard you on the radio." I think I got 2 phone calls.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry if you were a loyal listener of the radio show and.
Well, now you can be a loyal listener of the podcast, and it's a lot better because we're not stuck in a format like we were, and now we can say shit and all sorts of things on the podcast. And I mean that in the sense of poop, not in a bad word.
Okay, store high in transit, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, plus Don kind of got us off on the wrong foot over there at the KFNX studios.
I did not mean to.
Dude, you jammed your foot so far into your mouth.
Yeah, well.
There was no retracting it.
That's true. So the first day, I get there.
Can I give the intro to this?
All right, go ahead.
I show up to the studio, and I'm pumped. I'm yeah, this is going to be great. Don gets out of his car, and he's white. He's just scared. I'm dude, it's just the radio. It's okay. He's no, you don't understand what just happened. And I'm oh, do tell. And so, Don, take it away.
Yeah, so I got there early. I didn't know how long the drive was going to be. I want to make sure this is the first time on the, WeGrowOurs is on the radio.
He has brand new clothes
We're
on.
all ready, Yeah, I'm all prepping. Yeah. So I get to the parking lot, pull in, and I'm sitting there waiting for Nick. I've got almost a half an hour. So about 10 minutes goes by, and this lady walks up, and her hair is,
dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Or very frazzly.
Frazzly, let's go with that. And she's got kind of layers of clothes, and most of them have holes in them, including this vest that looks a little older. And her shorts are a little ratty. And, she's...
No makeup.
No makeup. She was walking around the area, and, I kind of came up to the window and said hi. So I just said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I have no money to give you. I can only carry plastic." And so she proceeds to kind of look at me and go, "Oh, I'm the board operator for KFNX. Are you Don or Nick or WeGrowOurs?"
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just kind of went downhill right from there. I apologized, but I'm sorry. I only carry plastic. I have no money to give you. So I had a rush to judgment, and it was a very bad one. Now, I guess she exercises. So she layers her clothes up. And in between shows, she walks around the stairs and the buildings and exercises. But
Dude.
I did not know that. And she's a very, very nice lady. She did a wonderful job most of the time on the board. So I'm not dissing her at all, and I don't mean to disrespect her. She just frankly looked like a homeless lady. Did she not?
Dude, there's no digging out of that. You assumed a lady was homeless and was begging for money. And then we followed that with 3 months of our shenanigans about talking about butchering rabbits and stuff.
Oh,
and get this. I show up one day and she's got the vest off and the shirt underneath is like this cute little thumper bunny rabbit thing. I was like, oh, I love your shirt. And she just gives me this dirty freaking look. I'm like, no, I'm serious. She's like, well, thanks. And I'm like, I like rabbits. And she's like, well, in a different way than I do. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't think it worked real well.
Yeah, and it was awkward too, because we'd be sitting in there live on the air, and I'd be looking at her through the window talking about killing Thumper, and I could just see her freaking out and flailing about in the room like she didn't want to hear it. Like she'd like walk away and plug her ears and stuff. And I didn't realize it until we'd been recording for like a month and a half.
Yeah. It happens. The
so
format
awkward.
was very difficult unless we're in the studio live.
Yeah.
To pre-record. And Nick and I do have jobs, and we have church too. Getting down there at the right times, and it just didn't fit in with our lifestyle. And frankly, I think the show suffered a little bit because of it.
Yeah.
So we're back to a podcast, which is what we are.
That's right. We are the non-doom and gloom.
That's right.
We are the ones that empower your independence.
I like it.
We don't fit in over there at the world's coming apart.
Yeah,
Obama sucks.
I know everything is going to collapse, and I know that there's a lot of preppers that listen, and we're glad you do. And I hope things don't collapse, but I can't disagree with you. We'll see what happens in September, I guess.
Yeah.
That's been my prediction. I think we're going to have a market correction. See, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say a collapse. It's going to be a market correction.
A reverting of funding.
I think 1986 kind of market correction, but
not like a 1919 or when was Black Tuesday?
Yeah, that was
1920 or 1919.
I don't know now. I thought it was 1918 something.
The start of the Great Depression,
when people were jumping out windows.
Yeah,
I don't know that it'll be that, but I don't know that we have the ability right now to recover from. We can't. You're going to get me into politics and financials and quantitative easing. And I don't know that we have the money to do quantitative easing because we're $18 trillion in debt. So we've got problems in this country. And whether you're left or right or anything else in the middle, we have problems in this country. $18 trillion is not a good place to be.
Yeah. I don't foresee us being able to pay that off anytime soon.
Well, the problem is that pretty soon we're going to be so far in debt that the money that we collect in tax revenues is going to go only to paying the debt. So that happens. We have interest on this stuff. And
then the
when
infrastructure disappears.
Right. When we hit 47% going to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, that kind of stuff, I'm going to call them welfare programs. They're not just welfare. Social Security is earned, social programs. And then we have 52 cents going of every dollar going to pay the interest on our national debt. I don't know how we recover from that because there's nothing left at that point.
So bottom line, look at what's around you. Look at what you've got on hand because possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, good point.
And if this has been
it's almost 10/10 if you have the right guns.
There you go. It's 11/10 at my house. So I scared the crap out of the CenturyLink guy yesterday, speaking of guns.
Uh-oh.
He knocks on the door, and first off, any Mexicans listening, this noise is offensive in anything south of the border.
Really?
Up here, it's shave and a haircut, 2 bits. Well, down there, it's chinga tu madre, cabrón.
Did you just cuss?
I cussed a lot.
Should I blank that out?
No.
Okay, so educate me.
It's F your mother, you old goat. An old goat's that's bad.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, he knocks on the door like that and then rings the doorbell twice. And then I hear him go, oh, whoops, like all quiet because I'm like right next to the door. And I fling the door open, and on the ground I've got my welcome mat that says there's nothing here worth dying for. And it's got the headshot of a .357 revolver. There's a pair of work boots that I used when I cut and gut rabbits that have blood on them and a shovel next to it.
Nice.
It looks ominous in my front door. And so the door opens up and he's like, wow. And he's like backing away. And he's like, wow, you got kind of a scary thing going on here. I was like, yeah, you ought to see what's behind the door. And I just got this cold stare. And he's like, should I come back?
That's when you should have had Cherie like little scream, like a blood curdling scream in the back.
Oh man, it was perfect though.
Nice.
So, anyways, it's all about presentation. People need to know what they're getting into when they walk up to your front door.
Yeah. Speaking of getting into things, we have Paul Vanderwerf on the show with us today. We're going to talk about aquaponics. So we're back to our old format. So we're just going to kind of go with this. Paul, I'm going to talk to Paul about a modular system I've been thinking of. I'm watching Nick play with a bug.
I'm sorry.
What is that you're pushing around the table?
This little critter came crawling out of my bag, I think. And
that's where it came out of. Okay. So we're going to talk to Paul. I'm going to talk to him about the modular system. I'm sure he's going to rip it apart. But I don't know that he has all of the information yet. So we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show, see how bad I get it from him. And then we'll go from there. So let's get Paul on.
All right.
What will you do when your stored supplies run out? Are you prepared? Hostile Hair provides equipment and education you need to control your own infinite food supply. We have live food storage systems for rabbits, quail, and other urban livestock for any situation and strategy. Don't be limited by what's on the shelves. Get started with an infinite food source today. Get prepped, stay fed with Hostile Hair. Call 480-331-3761 or visit hostilehair.com.
Lock and load. This is the WeGrowOurs show.
Welcome back to the WeGrowOurs show. We have a guest on the line. It's the Aquaponics man from Down Under. I said Down Under. I should have said Down Under.
Down Under.
Mr. Paul Vanderwerf, how are you, sir?
I'm really well, guys. Really well. How are you guys going?
Oh, doing all right. So I got to ask, it's 5:30 here. What time is it there, and what day is it?
It's 10:30 in the morning.
10:30 in the morning. Okay.
On Thursday, right?
And it's Thursday.
Thursday, yes.
Okay, so you're ahead of us, not behind us. See, me being the very proud American that I am, I figured we were leading the charge on time and world and space, and apparently, no, not so much.
All time revolves around American time. Didn't you know that?
Well, I mean, it revolves around me, and I'm in America, and, that's just how it is. Anyway, now that we've got everything squared away and straight here, Paul, you're working on a new website, right?
Yeah. It's probably been about, we started doing this in August last year. So it's I don't know how long that is, but it's been a long time. And so we decided we'd put articles and courses and things behind a membership. It was a big decision for us because, look, I've been writing articles and providing information for free for everyone for 5 years. And, I was really sort of torn whether or not we do that. And so we made the decision, we put it out there, and look, the response has been really good, really excellent. It's great to see people that are prepared to, front a few bucks and get some good advice, which, allows me to, and also encourages me to write more detail, which is excellent. So I'm very pleased with those results.
Well, that's cool. I've thought about the same thing, and you get into a pattern where you have the same introductory conversation with people over and over about something that you do, and it's nice to have a centralized location where you go, hey, you know what? This is great information at this site. Check it out. And your time's worth something. So, yeah, I believe in that completely.
Yeah, we're both capitalists. So,
yep.
As long as we get a membership for free, Paul, we love it.
Exactly. We will tell everybody
we'll
and their
that
children.
Happens for you then. I mean, the decision's not a financial one for me. I mean, I make my living from designing and building systems. It's more of a sort of a cost recovery, and we've got some other things coming up with that particular membership. We've put aside the money, and we're sort of treating it almost for want of a better description, like an association, an exclusive, men's club or gentlemen's or person's club, if you like, if we want to be have the equality. We're starting now to fund a research project here in Australia, which is close to me, which is good. And all of the results and all the processes and the heartache and the pain and everything that we go through, every single step, we're going to provide that to the membership so that other people that are seeking to do a similar thing can really just follow those steps and know what to look out for. And that includes the design, the financials, capital budgets, and also actual figures once we get into the sales, how we market and how we approach the market, and some of the brick walls that we hit, especially with legislation and things like that. We started that process in the back end. No one's seen it yet. But, it's sort of almost like crowdfunding, if you like. So we've got a membership site where we provide all of this wonderful information about aquaponics and aquaculture and design and things like that. But on top of that, we're going to use those funds to go towards building this facility, which the members will benefit from. So it's kind of like, you get a free T-shirt if you give us $25 in a crowdfunding operation.
Yeah, and that's definitely a worthy cause. Now, where can people find you on the internet?
Earthen Edge. So it's our company, of course, is Earthen Group, but Earthen Edge is EARTHAN edge.com. And there's a sign-up thing there, and the site itself has free articles still on it and interesting information, and we're building on that now. We've got a free webinar coming up next week about simplified design in aquaculture, to simplify that design process for people that are thinking about just getting the basic numbers up. So that's coming out next week, and that'll be free for everyone, not just the membership. And yeah, so I mean, that's sort of, we deliver that sort of information as well on the site itself. So earthenedge.com.
So is this going to be geared toward the guy wanting to do aquaponics in his backyard and feed a family of 2 to 5, or is it geared toward a small, medium, or large commercial aspect?
Pretty much all of it. We're going to cover all aspects. It's very hard to split the information up into specific, yes, this is for a full-blown commercial operation, this is the design process, or this is a capital budget, or whatever it might be, versus, look, this is a small home system, or this is a boutique farm, a family farm, an owner-operator farm. So we're going to cover everything, from the small guys to the guys wanting to start up maybe a small business operation, supporting it with other income, and, to a full-blown committed commercial venture. So we should be able to, our audience is very, very wide and very broad, so we can't just narrow it down to one thing. So, the information that we provide on commercial systems is very relevant to small systems, especially in design and things like that, because we do make it very simple.
That's great. Now, Paul, as you know, I talked to you a little bit, and I'm working on potentially designing a system. And
cool.
Basically what we want to do is figure out how to put plans together for do-it-yourselfers all the way up to a 10,000 square foot greenhouse. So my idea is to go modular systems. We're looking at 20 foot wide and then somewhere between 20 and 50 foot long, and then you can add on or go next to each other. So the system we're going to start with is 20 foot by 100 foot, and I want to do a hybrid system. And the reason that I've always said that deep water culture is the only way to go in any real aquaponics systems. I've always thought deep water culture. You can't do a hybrid system, even though I love hybrid systems in backyards. I've never figured out the right way to do a hybrid system. And one of your blog posts got me to where I think we've now got this because of the information you've provided and helped me with. And that's the backwards thinking way of hybrids. Almost everybody out there is doing it wrong.
It was the frontways hybrid system, and then it got quickly turned into something else. So,
you put a pump in backwards or what?
Well, look, you do it forward, do it backwards, however you like. All it does is change the limitations in the system. And when you're up in that commercial level, you want the absolute best bang for buck. And that buck that we're talking about is that protein feed that you're putting in there. And if you're using a commercial pellet, just alone compared to, say, hydroponics, it's, 20 times more expensive to use fish food as a nutrient source for your plants. So if it's 20 times more expensive to use fish food as a nutrient, then you really want the absolute most you can get out of that. And doing it backwards, if you like, then, it does reduce a lot of that nitrogen loss in these systems and gives you a little bit more control. I know you can sprinkle your potassium carbonate or bicarbonate for your fruiting plants and things on it. But at a larger commercial system, something bigger than, 250 or 150 square meters, you're going to want a lot more control than that, because the last thing you want to do is run around sprinkling stuff over grow beds when you just want to be growing and picking. That's it. You don't want to be mucking around with them too much.
I guess I had the backwards way of thinking, because one of the biggest problems with doing the hybrid system is controlling the nitrates and fruit and blooming your plants, having them produce fruit.
Right. Yep.
So by switching this around, you really can control that a whole lot better. And
look, I would take it another step, if I can interrupt there. I would take it another step. I would not try to link the two. I would do separate treatment systems. So if you've got, like decoupled as they're talking about lately, if you've got a system where you've got a recirculating aquaculture and you've got your solids and everything here and you're processing those and mineralising, maybe adding a bit of rabbit poo or whatever it might be you're doing, then put those out into treatment cycles on their separate loops. So if you've got a deep water culture system, don't try and connect it to a media bed. Just do a deep water culture system, and then next to that, and all it is an extra circulation pump. They're only small pumps. You don't need a lot of water movement in plants.
Right.
So, you've got, you send your nutrient juice out to this treatment tank, and you can use hydroponic dosing controllers for that. You can just set your EC that you want on there, and then you go. And then you cycle that tank on your deep water culture. And then when you do your media bed, should you want to use a media bed, then set up a separate one for that. And then cycle that up so that whenever you're ready to, you're in that stage where, you can lower that EC when your fruiting plants are growing and getting there. So you keep that nitrogen level either higher or lower. And then what you can do is lower the EC and then jam it with your potassium. Dose that system up with your potassium when it comes to when they're starting to set fruit, so you don't end up with blossom end rot and all sorts of fun things like that. So you've got absolute control over it. It's a media bed system or not. Separate them so that they're individual units and components, so they're completely controllable.
And using the main deep water culture as kind of the vein for everything?
No, I would just have it circulating on itself, doing its thing, and once you set your EC, say on a dosing controller, they're a couple of $100. They're just a little unit that can switch on a pump, and you can transfer your mineralization tank, your juice and your goodness, to it to maintain the EC that you want in that circulation. So it's just like hydroponics, do the same thing. Separate your systems and break it into small pieces. So in a hydroponic system, you'll have a dosing tank or several dosing tanks, sort of A and B mixture, and an acid tank. Yeah?
Right.
So if you think of your dosing tanks, those tanks then dose a sump, which is your circulation tank, right? So they keep that water at X amount of EC, X amount of pH. Yeah.
Hey, just for the layman's listening, what exactly is EC?
Oh, electronic conductivity.
Okay.
So it's a measure of usually it's a simple measure of the metals that react with electronic current in your water. So it's a guesstimation, if you like, of the amount of nutrient you have in the water.
Okay. It's almost like electrolytes, if you would.
Exactly. I mean, electrolytes are full of salts. And salts are very, very well. Most nutrients are salts of metals. So salt's highly conductive, and it's a really small voltage put through between two probes, and it measures that transfer between one probe to the other. It puts a little charge through them, like a little battery charge.
All right, now I feel like I'm on the same page.
Cool. So those dosing controllers, right? They're just the hydroponic dosing controllers. They'll switch on a pump, so a little transfer pump from your mineralizing tank where all your juice is really brewing up, and it'll just keep topping that circulation sump. Right. So now your mineralizing tank is your nutrient tank. the A and B mixtures. It's your nutrient tank. It goes to your circulation sump, which in the hydroponic is a sump, and then it just keeps it where you want it in terms of acid, in terms of pH and EC, so nutrient, and then you can circulate that and it'll just keep dosing it up and keeping it exactly where you want it. So in lettuce you might want a 0.3, you see, which is bugger all. It's next to no nutrient at all. These things grow on, fairy dust. So,
Okay.
Whereas your heavier feeders like kale, for example, those heavy collards and that, they require, I push them up at around about 1.8, and they really thrive. So, and then tomatoes, they can push up into 3. So very different between growing a lettuce and growing a tomato plant. Very different. So you can then control them at the individual. Big enough individual, like if you've got your, 20 foot by 100 foot set up and you divide it by 2 and one side's got an 8 foot by 100 foot grow bed in it that's a floating raft or deep water culture, and then you've got another one beside it that's 8 foot by 100 foot media bed. They would just have just a circulation sump between them.
Right.
So one would have a circulation sump to move the water through the media bed, and the other one would have a circulation sump to move the water through the deep water culture. And each one of those is controlled individually. Very, very easy stuff.
Wow.
Well, you make it sound easy.
Have I lost you?
Yeah.
Well, it is. It really is. You've got to look. Anything that's complex, as you know, any complex problem, you break it down into the small bits, and then attack each small bit as it comes to you, rather than trying to attack the bigger picture.
That's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a
That's
time.
how I approach design anyway. I break it down into such small pieces, it's ridiculous. So that's what I would be doing in your scenario. Something else I'd give you a little bit of advice on, I just wrote about it 2 days ago, is about the economies of scale. When you're looking at, did you say 10,000 square foot?
Eventually. I'd like to go a modular system, so go 2,000 square foot and then do 5 of them at some point.
I spoke about that modular approach recently, and you've got to be very careful with the size of that module, because one, you're going to have a very high energy use and a very inefficient use of space. So, for example, the example I gave was, say, 6 1,000-litre tanks. Not that you'd do that, but 6 1,000-litre tanks versus one 1,000-litre tank. I mean, that alone, is, I think it's about, you use, in the sixth thing, you use 36% more space. And understanding that when you're applying each tank, every single fish tank applies a labour component.
Right.
It also applies an inlet valve, an outlet valve, and monitoring on every single tank, feeding every single tank. I can feed a 6,000-litre tank just as quickly as I can feed a 1,000-litre tank.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so you've got to be careful with that. So when you do lay it out in terms of, do boxes and put your circles or whatever you're doing with your things, and have a look at how you might be able to go up whatever tank available is there, go up to a different size tank to try and get the absolute maximum out of that footprint. Yeah? Because if you're going to have a modular system, what you'll do is you'll keep replicating that inefficiency in every single module. And then when you do that over, say you want to go, say, 200 square foot 2,000 square foot modules, for example, and do 5 of those, you multiply those inefficiencies by 5 and you'll go broke. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Make sense?
Yeah.
You just keep, it might work on a small system, the inefficiencies, you don't really notice it, because it's a small system easy to manage by one person, and then you multiply it by 6. Then suddenly it becomes very difficult for 3 people to manage it.
And not just your overhead, but the actual labor involved. Makes sense. It's easier to switch one valve on.
In that scenario, even with grow beds, when you think about your grow bed sizes and access, you're looking at a 20% increase easily in capital. You're using at least 150% more materials. So your capital goes through the roof when you're multiplying these modules. So does your energy use, because you're replicating the same thing over and over and over and over. When you're pumping into 6 tanks, your head pressure, for example, on a pump, because you've got so many bends and all these connections everywhere, your head pressure is a lot greater, so you need a lot more energy to move the water. So versus one tank, one inlet, happy days. So in that scenario, it can be very, very inefficient. So do your numbers up and then change it and redo your numbers again and put them against each other. Yeah? Because you will hit problems later if you keep replicating that module. It'll become unworkable.
So
it'll become so inefficient that your cost of production will exceed anything you'll ever make. You will not be able to produce it for less than you sell it for.
right, and that makes complete sense. But how do you go from? I think that one of the things I've seen is that it's tough to enter the market without a huge amount of capital, and what we've wanted to do was try to bring that down to something that a family can do. It's not, obviously there's still some capital involvement, but how do you take a small system and expand it to start out in that level that you have to start making some money, getting to know your market, doing the experimentation and growing that market before you can just go jump into it? Because most people don't have the money laying around to buy the big stuff, to go out and market that. They don't know, they don't have the knowledge, and it's a learning process as they go.
You're exactly right. I mean, and that's a really huge trap for a lot of people getting into the business, whether it's just aquaculture or hydroponics or even this integrated aquaponics. You know, it's a big trap because what happens is they build a system that's really only a proof of concept. Yeah.
Yes.
And you need to keep that in your mind. It's not something that you're going to replicate, 10 times to get 1,500 square meters. You've got 150 square meters of grow space. You've got 3 or 4 tanks, and then you multiply that, umpteen times to get even anything that's going to service your market. So build your concept. Your proof of concept should be saying, well, I want to run this proof of concept, like you say, get some access into your market, to know what your market needs. It's good for market research. If you're not prepared to spend the money to get the market research, then this is a way to approach it. But your first model it shouldn't be one that you sell, basically. You should never sell your first design.
Right.
Ever. So your first design is a proof of concept. Yeah?
Yeah.
Look, this works, and in my market here, look, I'm managing to service this many restaurants or whatever it might be, and, I'm selling to some families down the road, and I might be bartering for some rabbits, whatever it might be. This is working for us. And you track everything that you do, every input that you do. And then when it comes time that you want to reach out into bigger markets, and some farms are recently doing that in America, where they've just got on a retail chain supply contract. And so they have to expand up really big. They have to move very quickly up into the next level. They can't just replicate what they have over and over. They have to say, righto, I'm here, this works. And then you have to, if it's a business model that works, then you should be able to attract funding for it and expand it properly. Now, this doesn't mean that you go, righto, I've got to build, a 10,000 square meter system to address my market here. All right? Doesn't mean you can build it straight off the bat because, look, you're not going to have enough fish to support it in nutrient for 10,000 square meters, no matter what you do. Build your fish farm the size that it needs to be to address the local market and the size that you're going to need at the end game. You can always run it at a much lower density, or maybe just not turn some tanks on. Whatever you need to do, but build it that big. Then do your greenhouse as a modular rollout. You might say, okay, well, I'm going to build this 1,000 square meters of my 10,000 first, or maybe 2,000 square meters of my first run, and I'm going to do this many of these varieties because that addresses my first point, my market penetration. And then as you get the biomass up in the fish, you then add more on. But you need to allow that you're going to need this much capital for the end game. And you're going to need this much cash flow for the end game. Because you'll come unstuck very quickly. In the first year, you'll start hitting brick walls very fast with your cash flow. If you don't do it properly, you need to set out milestones for the business. The business achieves, and look, investors expect this. They expect, it's pretty common, they go, look, you've got a 3-phase expansion here. We'll give you this first stage of expansion, but you must achieve these sales milestones or profitability milestones before we release more money to you. So it's a tough one. You need to know your market. So you can build it small, but it's a proof of concept. Do not replicate that model thinking that it's going to keep making you multiple amounts of that money, because it's going to cost you more and more and more every time you replicate it.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Now, I've got another question moving a little further on. Well, Nick, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds like instead of having modules that you put back to back to back, you could say this is a pilot module and this is production module. Start off with the pilot, feel out your market, and when you're ready, we'll try and find you a market to sell off your pilot, and we'll install this big guy.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we did in UAE. I mean, we the pilot model is 4,000 square meters with 40 ton of fish. That's a pilot.
Yeah.
Because the bigger version is
slightly larger than my backyard, but yes.
Yeah, but what I'm, horses for courses. The bigger model, the actual commercial model over there is 150,000 square meters.
Right.
So it's not much sense in me building a 250 square meter proof of concept or pilot model to try and gain the commercial information that I need to expand it to 150,000 square meters. It doesn't make any sense. So it's got to be relevant. Your pilot model or your proof of concept model needs to be relevant to what your end game is. So you get commercially viable, commercially usable information from your sales and that. If you have a small system and you're going down to the local shop and you're selling your lettuce for $2 a head, and then you roll that out into your bigger expansion at $2 a head, you'll come unstuck because you'll be short on cash flow because you won't get $2 a head.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. Now, one of the other things that I don't see talked about a lot in aquaponics, and I'm hoping you can help with this, is either greenhouse biosecurity or pest control. How do you address those two issues?
Huge problem. Look, it's not all that complicated. Again, aquaponics isn't some secret weapon against biosecurity or in pest control. There's no secret weapon there. You need to do what greenhouse hydroponic growers do. Yeah? You need to have the proper, biosecurity at each point. Same with the fish farm part of it. Fish farms have biosecurity in terms of quarantining their fish when they come in. They're in a separate unit. They've got disinfection floor mats and things like that between different sections. Same with the greenhouse. You'll have, a vacuum room even on when you're walking in, so that you don't bring anything in with you. You've usually got to put on little paper slippers and paper overalls and a little hairnet to get into a greenhouse that has biosecurity. Just to look at it, all the workers are wearing the same thing, and these are disposable things. They're disposed of all the time. So you've really got to look at your biosecurity as how does the hydroponic growers do it? There's nothing new with aquaponics. You've got to use the same approach. You can use the same integrated pest management that hydroponics use, and you can use the same biosecurity measures that hydroponics use.
Nice. Okay.
So that's what I would suggest. Talk to the hydroponic guys. If you're going in business somewhere near them, go and have a look at their facilities, see what they do. Some of them are a bit slack, but most of them have got pretty strong biosecurity controls. That's sort of what surprises me about a lot of the systems I see out there in the world. Because they've just got 30, 40 people walking through the place, which would just be a nightmare for me. I mean, you've got forms you fill out when you go into other farms, and they say, have you been to another farm in the last 24 hours or last whatever hours, or today even? Because you've gone over to another farm, you've walked through their dirt and soil, and then you come and bring these diseases and insects and bugs and whatnot else into my greenhouse. So the one in UAE, you can't get into it. Well, they don't let any visitors. No one.
I guess what that sounds kind of scary to a guy that wants to just do it in his backyard. Can you do an open system? I mean, if you don't have a greenhouse, then you can't really maintain that, right?
Well, no. I mean, if you're the only one coming into access with it, and you might have the odd visitor or the potential buyer or whatever it might be coming in. I mean, that's okay. Just use normal hygiene practices. Washing of your hands and.
Well, that's going to be a problem. I'm kind of a dirty feller here. No, just kidding.
Well, as long as you're eating the food, no problem.
Yeah.
A foot bath doesn't hurt. And I've been to fish farms that just have a little 20-litre flat drum, and they just put a bit of chlorine in it, and you stick your boot in there and give it a jiggle, and then you can walk into their hatchery or whatever it is. There are foot baths you can get, so that you've got at least that there's no cross-contamination between outside of your production area and inside. And it's just the basic things like that. A foot bath at your entry points, a foot bath between your two sections, if you like, if you've got aquaculture and your hydroponic part. The washing of the hands, basic hygiene is good. Yeah. So those sort of basic things are okay for the backyard. And I wouldn't even say backyard. Or if you're producing food for someone else, you need to have some that personal hygiene happening. You don't need to put your beauty overalls on. I mean, if you're walking into a greenhouse that has, $2 million worth of produce in it, I'll bet you they will vacuum you down and they will wrap you up in plastic before you can go in there.
Yeah.
Because, for you to visit it and you're going to compromise my $2 million worth of crops sitting there, you'll have to fill out these forms. You'll have to go through these processes. But the backyarder guy, he might only have $1,000 worth of crop sitting there at any time. So the risk isn't quite so big.
All right. So once again, we're on with Paul Vanderwerf out of Australia. And Paul, one more time, what's your website?
Earthenedge.com.
Okay. And you've got the new, you've got a lot of free content on there, and now you've got the place for kind of the premium content. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we're releasing more and more stuff all the time.
Now, we've talked about this in the past, but I'm a major fan of crawfish and crawdads. I think that those are to me, that's what, like my system in my backyard, I kind of lost interest in it in a little bit. I had the fish going, and I'm not real big into plants, but I love crawdads. And what is the biggest system that you've seen that's raising them?
Well, none recirculating anyway. I've seen many attempts at keeping them in some kind of tank system, but the production values just they're just not worth it, because it's all about, how much you can get out per square meter of footprint. That's why ponds work so well. You might get 800 kilo in a pond arrangement. You might get 800 kilo per hectare, for example, in a pond. But trying to achieve that in a big tank is not going to work. So they're extremely difficult. I mean, unfortunately, you guys over in America have a thing called the crayfish plague, and your Procamberus clarkii, I think that's your normal, your little, your swamp crayfish over there. Those little fellas, I mean, they carry this disease. They don't necessarily die from it unless they're very stressed, but if you introduce them to any other crayfish, the other crayfish will die. So I don't know, if you've got a big raft system, great to run, a few hundred kilo underneath it. If it's a big raft system, let them run around under there. But trying to culture them in tanks is very, very difficult. I mean, the best that we've achieved is 7 kilo per cubic meter of water, which is extremely high. That's somewhere near, nearly 15 times higher than pond culture. But it is not an easy thing, and it's very capital intensive.
Okay, so you have to really increase the surface area inside of the tank in order to do that.
Yeah, and when you increase the surface area in the tank, you destroy the hydraulics in the tank. So meaning that, you can't move water. If you've got all this structure in there, you can't move water through it. And so they're pretty hardy and they'll handle that. So, but harvesting them could be difficult. But yeah, you need lots and lots more surface area. Whether it's netting, I mean, with small crayfish, your juvenile crayfish, there's nothing better than just a mountain of bird netting in the tank. So you might have one of those IBCs, and you say, right, I'm going to grow myself some crayfish. Just load it like a filter and just punch all this, just heaps of bird netting in there, all scrunch, just chuck it all in there, and that'll give enough room for all your tiny little fellas, because they're very carnivorous when they're young. And that'll give them tons of surface area and complex habitat. Yeah.
Right. Well, does the food make its way all the way down through that, or?
Yeah, they figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Just harvesting them is not much job. But you take the net up and you shake it out, and you get your. It's very manual. But if you want to keep a heap of them like that and just load it up with bird netting, not a lot you can do about the filtration side in terms of moving water. You can move water through it fairly slowly. But it won't necessarily remove solids, which is a good thing because the bird netting will accumulate solids, and the crayfish love running around licking that off. It's kind of like, if you feed crayfish, say blanched potatoes or something like vegetables, you just blanch them to soften them a little bit. You feed them just that, they go, that's pretty tasty, but it's like eating a piece of toast. But if you let it sort of sit for 3 or 4 days, it gets this bacteria on it. And same with the bird netting, it's just bacteria on it. And then it's like kind of having a piece of toast with Vegemite. And I don't know whether you guys are familiar with Vegemite, but, lots of protein and lots of yumminess in it.
I'm gonna disagree with you on the yumminess part because I've had Vegemite. Not a fan, bro. Sorry. You give me a peanut butter sandwich
you've got to be born in Australia to acquire a taste for it. The Asians love it because it's so salty and bitter. I like it. It's okay. It's not it's not like mayonnaise. I won't put it on everything.
Gosh. Oh man. That's now here's a question. I've played around with the concept of the bird netting. That actually reminded me, if I built a nylon lattice that I can submerge in a tank that would grow algae, I could introduce things into that tank that would essentially, if I was thinking of having like a 4-inch pass through in my nylon net so that fish could get through it just fine, and take this whole lattice and leave it in an IBC where there was not a whole lot of water moving, and algae could grow easily, like angel hair or whatever algae is just ambient.
Yeah.
Then take the whole lattice out and set it into another tank where the fish were. And the tilapia, they love that stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're talking about creating your own food.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things like whether it's, shade cloth, even burlap, but it won't last long. But shade cloth, if you can just say vertically make up a bit of a frame, like you say, put it in an IBC with a bunch of, your wastes or whatever, and just let the thing go green. It doesn't take long. It'll just go absolutely green and grow a hell of a lot of algae. You can take that and stick it into another system for feed, but then you're introducing algae, which changes up your biologicals in your system. But, in small systems, it's not a big deal. And look, and on that, I mean, we grew tilapia on algae. We had 2 systems just to trial them. One was in a highly filtered system that was fed commercial feed, and then another one, this is in IBCs, and then we had 2 IBCs out in the sun, which all of the waste from that clean system got pumped out into from the filters. Mm-hmm. And that water was just brown. It was terrible. We let it go green, and it did. It was just this big pea soup. And we had tilapia in there, no aeration, and we had tilapia in the clean system, and the ones that were being fed, and the ones that were in the green water grew faster than the ones that were in clean water.
Really? Now...
Yeah, and we didn't feed them anything. Nothing.
Wow.
So all we did is use the waste from the clean water system.
Did they taste different?
We pumped that out into an IBC, and those IBCs were sitting out in the sun, and so they were just this thick green soup. And because they produce oxygen during the day and CO2 during the night, or chew oxygen through the night, we didn't have that many fish in there. We probably had 20 fish in an IBC, and they grew faster than the ones that were in the clean water system being fed a commercial diet.
So here's the $1 million question: what was the taste difference? Did you try them?
Yeah, I didn't notice any real difference because obviously it's not muddy water. It was quite dirty water, but the algae cleaned that up fairly quickly, and so it was just green. The fish were cleaner looking. The ones coming out of the algae water were actually quite cleaner looking in general, but I couldn't notice any taste difference. Wow.
See, that's a breakthrough because that's one of the major things here. Even in Arizona, we've got a fish farm down in Gila Bend, and somebody was saying that some of the fish coming out of it taste like they've been drinking sewer water. And the answer is that they're saying, well, those came from the dirty tanks. But
what do they call them? Neosmins. I can't. Neosmins. I can't. Anyway, it's a special bacteria that gives them that funny flavour. It happens in tank culture and it happens in pond culture. It doesn't matter how you do it. In pond culture, if your bottom of your pond is the benthos is very icky. It's really thick with mud and sludge. You haven't drained it and dried it very often or for a couple of seasons. Then the taste of the fish goes really bad. In a well-managed pond, in a well-managed tank system, I've had no issue with flavours.
Huh. Interesting.
Speaking of ponds, I'm putting in a 1/4-acre pond pretty soon.
Cool.
Yeah, and we're going to stock it with catfish, just some, and who knows what else, but maybe some bluegill. And it should. I'm looking forward to going out there and going fishing.
Yeah, throw all your rabbit poop in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we plan to have a bunch of Muscovy ducks when we first started up to help seal it. And I've heard that by putting those out there, and they'll be meat ducks, their excrement ends up sealing the pond and is kind of a more natural way of doing it. So it'll be filled up with rainwater as we go, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited about having a pond, though.
Oh, it'll be awesome fun.
I'd never heard that before about the ducks. Their crap actually seals the... You'd
Yeah.
have to have a ton of ducks out there, wouldn't you?
No, we'll introduce probably 10, 12 ducks, and then they'll breed. We'll let them breed for a season. Should end up with close to 200. That'll seal it up, and then we'll probably drain it a little bit, let it dry, and then refill it with rainwater. So,
and then you've got plenty of ducks to eat.
You got it.
Oh
a lot of ducks.
Yeah, 200
Absolutely.
ducks weighing 15 pounds apiece.
Yeah, the Muscaves. All right. Well, Paul, do you have anything? Do you have any other questions? We've running out of time here.
I've already. I guess we should follow up that. What was our conclusion on rabbit poop to aquaponics? Because the last interview we left it as let's give it a go, and that was months ago, and I still haven't done it yet. I'm playing with another concept where the rabbit poop actually grows fuel stock, not feedstock for eating. But you looked up on another rabbit site that said something about not doing it. Am I right?
Oh, look, there's plenty of places that'll say not do it, especially with warm-blooded animals. They seem to have this, this thing about warm-blooded animals and recirculating systems. It makes a bit of sense in terms of E. coli introduction and that, the bad bacteria sort of getting a leg up on everyone else, all the other microflora, and, overtaking the system, and then you end up with nasties. And look, that's a really big problem if you're eating the roots.
Okay. So no root vegetables.
No, if you're eating the roots on your lettuce, and you're not washing the roots on your lettuce, then that's a problem. Or if you're cross-contaminating between the water, and the plants themselves, so your hands are touching that fish water, for example, or the water that you're treating with the rabbit, and then you're going and handling the plants, that can become a bit of a problem in terms of E. coli, and also obviously transferring that into your processing areas where you're whether you're processing the rabbits or processing the plants or whatever it may be. It's just that biosecurity between different areas and making sure that you've got some good personal hygiene. I think you're fine. I don't see any major risk with it at all. I mean, if that was the case, there'd be millions of gardeners around the world dropping like flies because they're all putting cow turds and camel turds and, horse crap and stuff on their garden beds and turning it in and tilling it in and planting all their plants and doing their digging with their hands and stuff. And I don't see too many people dying of food poisoning from a natural garden at home. So,
no, those seem to be the healthiest.
Well, yeah. I mean, the other bacteria and that diversification of microflora in an aquaponic system, I think, there's some antagonistic or nasty bacteria that not nasty, but, they're kind of like your immune system in your body. You've got all these wonderful things in your body that will defend against invading nasties. And, aquaponic systems are quite resilient. We've tested water over there in UAE where we've got guys that are walking around in the camp. There's lots of cats and, you name it. It's not, the personal hygiene's not fantastic. And, we walk around in that water barefoot, all the time. And we have no, E. coli, issues. I just received a water test from the water treatment plant where we're getting our water from over there. The other day, and believe it or not, it's a water treatment, not a water treatment plant, a fruit juice processing plant. And it's got E. coli in it. Along with, some other nasties as well. And we get the water tested every month because we use that water in the system, rather than, so we're using a wasted water. So that water's normally irrigated out somewhere. They just get rid of it and dump it. And it's, it's something like, 45,000 litres a day. So we use that water to grow the food with in the desert. And so we have to constantly check it and test it. And it's just come up with some E. coli in the last batch, which is a bit of a concern. We've got treatment to stop that, but it's a bit of a concern that that's happening at the fruit juice plant.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit freaked out about that. Going into the kiddos' drinks.
Yeah. Well, this is the end of the line process. So how it's getting there, I have no idea. I mean, these are all big stainless steel vats. They're big processing. They've got even chemical treatment for getting rid of any nasty. It was quite surprising to see that. So, I mean, rabbit poo, I'd give it a crack. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I mean, I've seen people brew up, even foliar spray, they brew up, horse shit, if I can say that.
Yeah, we're not on the radio anymore, so.
Okay, so I can say shit a lot then. Yeah. Things like cow poo, put it in a vortex mineralizer or vortex airlift thing or whatever it's called, a compost tea brewer. Brew that stuff up and then spray it on their plants. I don't see people dying. You get more cases of food poisoning going to a restaurant.
Yep. Yeah.
So at a commercial level, you might be concerned. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate the talks, and it's nice talking to an actual authority on the subject. Not that Don's
cool. I look forward to hearing more about your project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we have to go redesign the whole thing. So.
Don looked like a little kid that just found out there is no Santa Claus over here when he's like, oh, but I really wanted to do it that way.
Well, listen, we've got a free webinar coming up. It's just simplified the aquaculture design side of things for you. So you might want to look at that first, and that'll get your fish tank side of things sorted.
Perfect.
And then later we'll release the other end of it, the integration.
Love it.
Awesome. So go to Paul's website. It's earthen.org?
Earthen Edge.
earthenedge.org, right? Or is it .com?
.com.
Yeah, see, I'm just jacking it up.
It'll be on the show notes, too, at WeGrowOurs.
Yes, pay attention to the snow notes. Wow. I'm quitting. Thanks, Paul, for joining us. We'll talk again.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks, eh? Good to catch up.
What will you do when your stored supplies run out? Are you prepared? Hostile Hair provides equipment and education you need to control your own infinite food supply. We have live food storage systems, rabbits, quail, and other urban livestock for any situation and strategy. Don't be limited by what's on the shelves. Get started with an infinite food source today. Get prepped, stay fed with Hostile Hair. Call 480-331-3761 or visit hostilehair.com.
Lock and load. This is the WeGrowOurs show.
Fairly old Donnie Boy is a little rusty with the controls. We've been recording for 30 seconds and... Oh, you got to hit that little red button? Anyways, we are professionals, folks. Don't try this at home or at all. What a great interview, though. I love talking to that guy. My problem is I don't understand everything that he's saying. I know just enough to know what he's talking about.
Right.
But then he'll say something like EC. I'm like, did he say easy or EC? I'm just going to ask. Okay, here we go. But, yeah.
If you ever are looking to do huge commercial systems, he is the man to do it. And if you want to learn about aquaponics, earthenedge.com.
Mm-hmm. Earthen Edge.
Yeah, Earthen Edge. I'll put a link up in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this man knows his stuff. So
that's right.
And, yeah, you ripped me apart a little bit on the modular systems, which I figured. I'm working on this, though. This is not, it's not designed to, it's not an expensive system, and it's not designed to be a huge commercial multi-million-dollar system. We're talking about something you could put in.
Something that you could maintain without a whole bunch of money. Yeah,
10,000 square foot total system. That's not just grow beds. I mean, grow beds are smaller than that. We're trying to get that in under 25 grand.
Okay. That's doable.
Well, the whole point is to be able to kind of start somewhere and you'd need a fairly large piece of property, but start. And it doesn't have to be 20 by 100 foot. It could be 20. It could be. That's what it's designed for, is to go on an acre and go in a backyard of an acre. You could even cut it a little bit shorter because it'll be a kit, and then put in a few of these, get your business going, then go out and do the other thing. So the proof of concept isn't just the 2,000. It's from 2,000 to 10,000, and that's square foot and covered area. We're not talking about that much,
Something that you didn't touch on when you're talking about the modules is if you go for the gusto and you're going to get the 10,000 square foot, unit, you're probably not going to start with the little tanks that go in the 2,000. You'll start with a tank that will handle 10,000 square foot.
Yeah, and again, this is designed as a way to get started and then move to that big. So I was thinking this is more of a proof of concept system in itself.
Yeah.
Start out, grow it, grow it, grow it. Yeah, it's going to get more expensive, but then you can take and cut your costs, because in a commercial system that's 10,000 square foot, you could probably have 9,000 square foot of it be growing. In this system, you will not get that kind of grow.
Yeah.
Even if you go 8 foot wide and 100 foot long, and 2 of those, so that would be your max. So you're not quite going to get, the same capacity you will if you did this as a multi-million-dollar system. This is something to get the proof of concept started, and you don't need to go 10,000 square foot either. That's kind of the max that we're looking at handling. Yeah, well, that's 5 of these, and that's kind of the max we're looking at being able to handle off of the tanks and everything else. The idea would be to start in somewhere between 100 and 1,000 and 2,000 square foot, work your way up for your market, then go out and get your funding and go do your commercial stuff, because this is not it. This is a small commercial system or a
5
backyard.
to 6 farmers markets.
Yeah, this is a farmers market. Yeah, supporting 1 or 2 people going out and doing this full time, selling in a farmer's market, making a little bit of money. That's kind of what the concept was, feeding the family.
Yeah.
So, because I see too many times that people say you can feed a family out of these, 15 square foot, and it's just, you can't.
If you eat nothing but kale.
Right. And that's why I want to see a little bit of hybrid, because I find in the hybrid and the media beds, it's much easier to fruit things like tomatoes and whatnot, but it's hard to control some of those chemicals. And by doing this hybrid system, I think we've got something that'll work. So we'll see. It's got to be prototyped. That's really what it comes down to. We've got to do our own proof of concept.
We didn't have a whole lot of time to ask Paul this, so I'll ask you. Where does your potassium come from in a system like that? Do you have to add it?
No, you don't. And I don't know the answer to that. You don't have to add potassium into a backyard system. Okay. We mainly add iron.
Yeah, your plants and stuff, they didn't struggle.
No, I add calcium. And I add iron. So we do use some oyster shell or egg shell.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're getting that potassium from that.
If you're growing chickens, you don't.
Right. And then we've also, I do add some liquid seaweed. With iron or without iron, and then add the iron supplement secondary. So that's about the only supplement that I use in an aquaponics system. Again, I've done backyard systems for a long time. I've never, ever done a commercial system. I don't claim to be a commercial aquaponics expert by any means. I just know how to set up backyard systems and grow a whole lot of food.
Hey, that's pretty much all our target audience. The people we're probably not going to, I don't know, if somebody wants to go gangbusters and do a commercial thing, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But the guys that are listening, I'm betting most of y'all are looking in your backyard going, you know what, I really need to turn this into something that produces for me.
Well, and I want to be able to design a system that if they put in, if they use just 20 by 50 for aquaponics, the rest can be garden. Put in the 100-foot greenhouse if you can. I mean, some people have backyards that they can fit that. Right now, I could fit one in my backyard, and that would be about it. But even if you can do one, if we can get it down to a cost that's affordable, because a lot of people are selling these things, like I say, for, 10, 12 grand. I put in systems that are 12 foot by 20 foot, including everything and installation for 4 or 5 grand. Some of our really nice stone and brick systems go as high as 15. And that's putting everything in and a beautiful, patio kind of decking thing on it and the whole thing.
Brick veneer.
But what if we could do this whole system, everything running for maybe 5, shipped to your door, and you put it all together and do it? I think people would use it.
I think so. I know I would.
Yeah. So what else we got?
Oh, that's pretty much it. We've got, what do we have? Well, Hostile Hair's got a few things coming out.
Yeah.
A cage modular system that will have multiple bottoms. And, your standard just coated 16 gauge or 14 gauge bottom.
Cool.
Or you can go with the self-cleaning, even a pull-out pan. As much as I hate them, I'm still going to give that option because some folks are stuck in that paradigm that we need pull-out pans under rabbit cages.
Are all the systems going to be shippable then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I'm working on a few different variations, but one of them I think is going to have a black soldier fly colony that can live right underneath with an aviary next to it. Not connected to the rabbits, but it would all the rabbit manure would drop in there, and then you could put all your table scraps and everything else in there too.
Nice.
And make black soldier fly larvae.
Yeah, well, you can't beat that, and you can do earthworms too.
That's right.
And you could take just taking even a pull-out pan and dumping it into an earthworm village or whatever they're called.
Well, that's a condo, earthworm condo.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the concepts is a 3 foot by 2 foot earthworm condo that goes right underneath the cages with slide out sections. You just pop it up and off, and it slides out, and you can dump the low section and you just kind of
keep recycling it.
I'm doing radio hand motions here. So basically the bottom becomes the top, and then the top is where you put the food, and the worms come up through the mesh, eat the food, and then the castings trickles down to the bottom.
Nice.
And you do that over and over, and the rabbit waste is all taken care of.
I love the idea. Now, are you going to be putting other things on the website too? Because I know you're working on a store, and we had talked a little bit.
Like Dan Punch's honey. I'm going to try and carry that.
Good.
I want to help people.
Such dang good honey.
Oh my gosh. Did you make it through yours yet?
Oh,
yeah.
I made it through most of it before I got home.
You're spooning it out in the car, driving with your knees hunking down honey.
Yeah. I stopped at the QT on the way home, and I actually toasted a piece of, I got some, what the heck did I get? I don't remember what I got. I got something. Oh, it was apple. It was a bagged apple. That's what it was. And I'm dipping it in the honey on the way home, eating the apple with
and I'm the fat one.
Yeah, well, no, you're not. Yeah, it was good. My wife and kids devoured the rest. It was literally gone in 2 days.
My wife and I, we've just got 2 people in the house, and that honey lasted maybe a week.
Oh yeah, we go through a
down.
jar like that maybe 3 days. Every 3 days.
Well, my goal is to carry products that are made by people that I know that have a good product. I don't want to just throw some Chinese knives on there and say, yeah, check these out. These are awesome. No. Boom.
Right. And I mean, we had Ralstein. Tim on, and he was saying, he's got it tough tested. And you're kind of looking to do the same thing.
Yeah.
More along the self-sufficiency lines, whether it be fuel or honey and food and things like that. So check out hostelehair.com and look for that. I'm sure I'm going to be putting links to the store on the WeGrowOurs site too. Mm-hmm. We've got to figure out a way to, you guys can always donate to the show, but to keep the show going, we're not looking to do much, but send some traffic over to Hostile Hair, and that way Nick keeps coming in here. So, all right. Well, hey, Facebook.com/WeGrowOurs, Twitter.com/WeGrowOurs, or at WeGrowOurs on Twitter. What else?
WeGrowOurs.com.
WeGrowOurs.com.
HostileHair.com.
Yep.
480.
PureNaturalSimple.com. I'll put that in. That's my wife's.
Oh.
That's the oils, by the way.
There you go. Yeah.
480. You said 480.
I was going to do my phone number, and then you just jumped right in there. Yeah, why not?
Go ahead.
480-331-3761. I hope. I don't call it
You
much.
had a look of
Jeez.
confusion on your face. I'm like,
Don, usually I have a look of confusion
It's
on
a
my
good
face.
With
life has been a little bit confusing for me.
Anyway, on that note,
We'll catch you next week.